I've never got the Michelle Obama theme. Does anyone care that she's not going to be there?
Stay home. No one wants to see you. You're right.
At the Democratic National Convention, Michelle Obama gave a speech that was hailed as powerful by the media. Contrary to what they thought, Megyn Kelly noticed something shocking, something that was meant to go unnoticed. Was Michelle Obama's address an earnest plea for solidarity, or was it orchestrated to deflect attention away from the Democratic Party's shortcomings? She seemed to be subtly admitting that Biden's administration was a failure, which begs the question, why? What do you think? Chicago City, July 24, 2023. Even though the Democratic National Convention was already underway, this one seemed different. With all the organized messaging and well-rehearsed speeches, it was obvious that the Democratic Party was in crisis mode. The atmosphere was charged with tension, and the stakes were high. Next, Michelle Obama made her way to the stage. Had the Democrats finally found their turning point? Or was this really another staged political act? Above all else, was First Lady Michelle Obama sincerely trying to inspire optimism in her address? Or was she subtly pointing out the shortcomings of her own party? Why did Megyn Kelly's response reveal something that the media outlets ignore? It seemed inevitable that the Democratic National Convention would be a watershed event for the party. Joe Biden resigned. He did not retire. He only stood down before his tenure was up. The current president of the U.S. resigned following months of dismal polls and obvious campaign trail troubles. The official storyline presented his resignation as a gracious choice that benefited the country, so it wasn't seen as a failure. But the reality was that everyone knew. The Democratic leadership realized Biden couldn't win, so they drove him out. And that caused a big issue. The nomination has shifted to Kamala Harris from Joe Biden. The problem was that nobody genuinely desired her. Throughout her 4 years as Biden's vice president, Harris had record-low approval ratings. Support for her campaign was minimal even among Democrats. The party needed a unifying figure who could revitalize the base, hide party divisions, and change the narrative. That is why they sought advice from the Obamas, the most powerful political couple in contemporary Democratic history. There can be no doubt that the Obamas remain the Democratic Party's shining lights, especially Barack and Michelle. Their clout is still high, their networks are extensive, and they are the ones summoned to fix the party's problems whenever they arise. Even though he wasn't the one giving the keynote address, Barack Obama's influence was palpable throughout the Democratic National Committee. When compared to other living Democrats, his support is more influential. He maintains party alignment through his network of funders, strategists, and media friends. Moreover, he allegedly had a hand in persuading Biden to resign behind the scenes. However, the spotlight was squarely on Michelle Obama. She was hailed as someone who might inspire others and provide hope during these difficult times. The address was typical Michelle, articulate, moving, and full of well-thought-out messages meant to touch the hearts and minds of regular Americans. She lamented the country's plight, the widespread pessimism among its citizens, and the dire need for united leadership. They were enthralled. The press was enthralled. People were gushing over it on social media. However, the entire affair seemed suspicious. Because if Michelle Obama was right, and the United States was going through a dark period, then who was to blame? For the previous 4 years, the highest office in the land has been occupied by Democrats. During Biden's inaugural 2 years in office, they maintained a stranglehold on Congress. They have been in charge of some of the most influential institutions and biggest cities in the country. Given that the country is in shambles, the people are despondent, and the government is inept, how is it possible for the very party responsible for these issues to suddenly assert itself as the remedy? Viewing it will change the way you perceive this speech forever. Megyn Kelly exposed the media's inability to confront Michelle Obama's duplicity during her DNC speech in an unedited and harsh critique. She was completely correct. Michelle Obama probably failed to see or thought that no one would notice the one obvious inconsistency amidst all the well-crafted speeches, enthusiastic applause, and critical acclaim from political analysts. "Hope is making a comeback," she said, standing up and staring America in the face. But where did this optimism originate? What source of hope is this? While her party has been in power for the last 4 years, she painted a picture of a country that is suffering, divided, and apprehensive about what the future holds. The Trump administration was not the subject of her speech. She had no intention of foreshadowing Trump's possible re-election. That's wrong. She was talking about America as it was throughout Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's administrations. Even so, not a single prominent news organization has dared to pose the very obvious question. Given the current state of affairs, wouldn't that constitute an admission of failure on the part of Biden and Harris? But that question was posed explicitly by Megyn Kelly. Michelle Obama's remarks, she said, were an obvious criticism of the Biden administration, whether that was her purpose or not. If you want people to re-elect the party that brought us these dark times in America, you can't say that they're in it. It's the same as going into a car sale and starting by complaining about how bad the automobile is. There was a huge political blunder there, not only in the use of hyperbole. Throughout Trump's presidency, the Democratic Party has spent the previous 4 years claiming credit for improving conditions, praising Biden for stabilizing the party, and claiming credit for the programs they have implemented. But now, at the campaign's pinnacle event, Michelle Obama addressed the nation, telling them that things were still awful, that people were still struggling, and that there was still no genuine togetherness. So why would she make such a statement? What gives the Democrats the green light to have their most prominent member promote an agenda that runs counter to their own record? The action starts to heat up now. Not only did Michelle Obama address the electorate, but she also sent a message to the Democratic elite. This begs the question of whether there is more discord and discontent going on behind the scenes than what they are ready to acknowledge in public. For months, rumors circulated that Barack Obama had helped push Joe Biden to resign, that key Democratic funders were losing faith in the party, and that behind closed doors, the most powerful leaders in the party were already plotting a future without Biden. And now that Michelle Obama has taken the stage to express her dismay at the nation's current situation, it's no longer mere speculation, it's confirmation. It was clear that she did not support the Biden-Harris administration from her remarks. It hardly sounded like a call to arms for support of their leadership. It seemed as if someone were issuing a warning, a subtle, calculated distance. There is no more apparent time than this. Michelle Obama's remarks might have taken a different turn if the Democratic Party had wholeheartedly trusted Biden. It would have emphasized the positive changes that had taken place, the enhanced strength of the United States under his leadership, and the logical progression leading up to the re-election of Kamala Harris. She didn't do that, though. Rather, she lamented the fact that America was at a crossroads and that everything had gone wrong. The speaker is not endorsing the current government. Rather, they are shifting their position in opposition. This is precisely the information that Megyn Kelly revealed. She brought attention to the inconsistency that no major news organization dared to mention. Michelle Obama was tacitly acknowledging the failure of the Biden administration. Given this history, why would anyone trust Biden's closest political buddy and Vice President Kamala Harris, who has supported him in all of his important decisions? Michelle Obama's speech sheds considerably more light on this point. She would have been more forthright about her trust in Kamala Harris if that were the case. She would have stressed Harris's unique qualities, her ability to revive this supposedly lost optimism, and why she was the ideal leader for the current situation. Yet it was not the case for her. Despite the dramatic pauses and well-crafted phrases in her speech, she remained surprisingly evasive when asked to endorse Kamala Harris. No one vehemently defended Harris's leadership or made a convincing argument for why she was the best choice. Why? The Democratic Party is aware of how widely disliked Harris is. Polls show that she is doing worse than Biden, and they know it. Even Democrats are wary of her leadership, which is something they are aware of. So rather than arguing passionately for Kamala Harris, Michelle Obama shifted her attention to a more abstract and secure concept, hope, which is both emotionally potent and comfortably ill-defined. Because of this, the response from Megyn Kelly was crucial. Kelly zeroed in on the silence as the press gushed over Michelle Obama's speech. She brought up the fact that Michelle Obama had failed to adequately defend Joe Biden's administration. The inconsistency in supporting the previous leaders while also asserting that America needs a new beginning was brought to light by her remarks. Michelle Obama has brought up the most important question: who is to blame for the American issue if that is indeed her belief? The Democrats would prefer that no one raise this question. Simply said, the moment you admit that the United States is having trouble, two things may happen. Either the Democrats have failed, or they are intentionally trying to deceive voters by appealing to their fears. And if the second is true, if the goal of Michelle Obama's speech was to make it seem like there was a crisis so that the Democrats could be portrayed as the saviors, then it is among the most cunning political strategies we've witnessed recently. We must now inquire, was Michelle Obama's address a sincere assessment of her party's shortcomings? Or was it an attempt to remove the Obamas from Biden's unpopularity and reset the Democratic narrative? More significantly, why should the American people believe Biden's presidency when not even Michelle Obama is ready to do so? Standing before an audience of millions, Michelle Obama made a speech that, at first look, appeared good and even heroic. She talked of the common people's problems, the need of justice, and her mother's insistence that people shouldn't take more than they need. However, the media chose to overlook a significant flaw in this remark. The Obamas have accumulated a vast financial empire worth over $70 million, probably even closer to $100 million when it comes to personal riches. This is in contrast to other families who have just taken what they can afford. A seaside estate on Martha's Vineyard valued at $20 million is one of 4 multi-million-dollar residences owned by this couple. Most Americans could only fantasize about the level of power, influence, and luxury they have. The obvious question therefore becomes, is Michelle Obama referring to herself when she says not to take more than you need? Or is it another case of the rich liberal elite preaching equality yet acting very differently, as many believe? Statistical evidence disproves any possibility of conspiracy or wild guesswork. Let's dissect it. The Obamas became well known for their support of working-class causes, including income redistribution and increased taxation on the wealthy. However, they have amassed a very profitable personal brand after stepping down from the presidency. The memoirs of Barack and Michelle Obama were optioned for $65 million. They managed to negotiate a $50 million production deal with Netflix. Their speaking fees often reach 6 figures. Michelle Obama, for example, might make $700,000 for a single speech. And that's very much not all. Their collection of properties is equally lavish. The Obamas possess a number of properties, including a $8.1 million Washington, D.C. mansion, a $8.7 million beachfront house in Hawaii, and their initial $1.65 million Chicago home, in addition to their $20 million Martha's Vineyard residence. These houses are far from humble. Far from being a necessity, these enormous mansions have private beaches, many guest houses, and vast grounds. The question then becomes apparent: is Michelle Obama speaking from a place of genuine belief, or is this just political theater? If that's the case, then why haven't she and her spouse set a good example? Everyone can't help but see the hypocrisy. Even though Democrats are often calling for a redistribution of wealth, the rules appear to shift when it concerns their own fortunes. Even as they preach to the American people about economic disparity, the Obamas are amassing record-breaking fortunes. They preach to the masses about how the wealthy should pay more in taxes, yet they've done all in their power to keep their own wealth in the family. Now let's take it a notch further. Open borders and policies that permit more illegal immigration into the United States are issues that Michelle Obama has often declared her support for. For their stance against mass immigration, she has attacked conservatives, claiming they are heartless. But if Michelle Obama was sincere about assisting migrant families in need, then why hasn't she let them stay in any of her 4 mansions? Give that some thought. More houses than the Obamas could ever need are in their estate. Their influence, together with their millions of dollars in cash assets, allows them to help families who are really hurting. They advise middle-class Americans to give more and sacrifice for the greater good, but they don't do anything about it. They just hoard their money. The Obamas aren't the only ones involved here. Affluent liberal elites often act in this way. Take Bernie Sanders, for example. He is a self-proclaimed socialist with 3 houses, one of which is a lakeside vacation property valued at over $500,000. Check out Elizabeth Warren, who takes a hard line against Wall Street while amassing huge speaking and book agreements. Nancy Pelosi's husband's stock trading, which, oddly enough, usually appears to coincide with significant policy shifts in Congress, is a big contributor to their net worth, which is believed to be over $120 million. The same people who think the wealthy should give back while keeping piling up their fortunes are the ones who put this idea into practice. While conservative businessmen like Donald Trump have considerable fortune, the media portrays it as a sign of corruption and greed. When, however, Obamas, Pelosi's, and Sanders's of the globe do the same thing, absolute quiet. Let us be quite clear about what is going on here. The First Lady is not having any trouble. She does not stand up for the working class. Living the high life while urging regular people to do more to fund government programs, she's a multi-millionaire. Because she does not follow through with her promises, her words have no weight. If her belief that people shouldn't take more than they need were genuine, she would lead the charge in cutting back on her own spending. However, she hasn't and isn't going to. And it ought to cover all your bases because improving the lives of working Americans isn't the point here. This has nothing to do with equity. Control is the key. Redistribution advocates often stand to lose the most from any given redistribution plan. They are more concerned with maintaining their power than with sharing their wealth. Their goal is to increase their wealth at the expense of the regular individual. They see a hierarchy in which they get to say who has too much, who gets to dictate the story, and who gets to sit on top while advising everyone else to sacrifice. And what about Michelle Obama's DNC speech? That was just another carefully staged political act, another attempt to divert attention away from her true character. A game of political power. Were the Obamas involved in Biden's release? At the Democratic National Convention, Michelle Obama delivered a speech that was noteworthy not just for her words, but also for her omissions. The limelight was on her, and everyone was waiting for her every word. She had the opportunity to passionately support Joe Biden, defend his record, and persuade Americans that he had been an effective leader. However, she avoided doing so in favor of discussing her feelings of fear, despair, and hopelessness. Someone who is passionately supporting an administration would not exactly want to send that message, and it begs the question, which no one in the mainstream media is willing to address, whether Michelle Obama was implicitly implying that Biden was never meant to win this campaign. There had been mounting rumors for months that the largest Democratic Party financiers and strategists no longer believed in Biden's victory potential. It was a precipitous decline in his approval ratings. It was getting more and more difficult to witness his public appearances. The media, who were his closest friends, had a hard time painting his leadership as anything other than a burden. Democratic leadership continued to say he was their man for an extremely long period. They ignored his main rivals and made his resignation seem impossible. Then, as if by magic, he vanished. As if this had always been intended, the very individuals who had supported him for so long now were behaving in this way. This is why the address delivered by Michelle Obama is crucial. This speech was more than just words on paper. It served as a masterful reset button for the Democratic Party. Preparing voters for a future without Biden was more important than defending his legacy. Finally, and most importantly, did Barack Obama personally orchestrate Biden's departure? Let's retrace our steps. It's common knowledge that Barack Obama is still a major player in the Democratic Party. His impact has remained strong even after he stepped down as president. Behind the scenes, he has had strong ties with prominent Democratic funders, party officials, and strategists. His backing was pivotal to Biden's victory in 2020. His alleged involvement in Biden's resignation has been the subject of increasingly heated rumors for the past year. Many reports have surfaced claiming that Obama was instrumental in persuading Biden to resign, arguing that Obama and other prominent Democratic funders saw clearly that Biden couldn't defeat Trump, and thus decided it was time for him to move aside. They required a fresh strategy if they intended to retain the White House. However, the situation becomes much more intriguing at this point. Why was Kamala Harris chosen to succeed Biden if the Democratic Party was turning its back on him? At first look, this decision doesn't appear to be rational. Among modern vice presidents, Harris is among the most unpopular. Her popularity has always been in the dumps. Her campaign was not well received even by Democrats. Why then did the party swiftly unite around Harris after ousting Biden? Something much larger than the 24th election could hold the key. The Obamas and the Democratic elite certainly weren't thinking 24 hours ago when they plotted Biden's departure. Whoever holds sway over the party's trajectory was on their minds. It is at this point that the remarks made by Michelle Obama are most illuminating. She had no intention of endorsing Biden. She didn't even show up to bolster Harris's argument. Her purpose in being there was to portray the Obamas as the party's stabilizing influence. Consider the meaning conveyed by her words. Policies or defending Biden's record weren't at issue. The message was one of renewed optimism, a change in leadership, and a compass to steer the nation out of its dark times. Distancing oneself from the current government is more accurate than endorsing it. Furthermore, the timing is quite odd. Political insiders started talking about Michelle Obama running for president several months before the DNC, when rumors about Joe Biden's likely exit were circulating. There were some who speculated that in 2024, if things went wrong, she might step in as Biden's emergency substitute. Some said she was set up for a 28th century run. Obviously, Michelle Obama has come clean about her lack of interest in seeking public office. The truth is, though, that her spouse did the same. In the years leading up to 2008, Barack Obama laughed off suggestions that he may seek the presidency. He was in the Oval Office 2 years after that. Are we to assume, then, that Michelle Obama has withdrawn entirely from politics? It seems differently given her attendance at the DNC. Speaking at this event was not mandatory for her. She could have stayed out of the limelight and quietly supported Kamala Harris instead. On the contrary, she became the showstopper. One of the event's most prominent remarks was given by her. This put her smack dab in the center of the Democratic Party's shift away from Biden. The 24-hour election approach is intriguing for this very reason. This is precisely the kind of thing Michelle Obama would do to set herself up for a presidential run in the future, be it in 2008 or later. To start, she makes it clear that she is not affiliated with the Biden administration's mistakes. She doesn't directly accuse the Democrats, but she does admit that the United States is having problems. In her own words, she presents herself as an unbiased arbiter, a rock of stability, and a symbol of optimism. Secondly, she portrays herself as independent of party politics. She spoke about togetherness, emotions, and sentiments rather than policies or Democratic talking points. Without officially launching a campaign, politicians do this to set the stage. Thirdly, she relies on supposition rather than hard evidence. She ought not officially declare a campaign. All that is required is for the media, the contributors, and the political strategists to begin conjuring up its outline. Rest certain they are already picturing it in their minds. Rumor has it that prominent Democratic strategists and funders have been clandestinely broaching the subject of Michelle Obama running for president for months. In 2028, she may be the best choice for the party, according to some. Some have even gone so far as to say that Michelle Obama may be installed as a substitute for Kamala Harris at the last minute in the event that she has trouble winning the general election. For the time being, though, this is just conjecture. Still, the bigger issue is whether or not the American people desire continued implementation of the policies that brought us to this point. The Obamas may be trying to put themselves above their political missteps over the last 4 years, but the truth is that their impact has never really gone away. The policies that have caused crime rates to surge in big cities, the economic hardships that have wiped out the middle class, and the ever-deepening divisiveness are not new issues. They have been constructing for more than 10 years. Joe Biden was only the beginning. It was more than simply an opportunity to tout Kamala Harris at the Democratic National Convention. It was a much more significant occasion, an opportunity to further entrench the Obamas' grip on the Democratic Party's trajectory. The optics, the speeches, and the message all pointed to the same thing. Barack and Michelle Obama are still the party's most dominant figures, and they're doing all they can to keep it that way. Is it about Kamala Harris or about maintaining the Obamas' position as the core of American politics? That is the actual question. Because let's be honest, Michelle Obama wouldn't have to be the party's emotional linchpin if the Democrats had faith in Kamala Harris. They could keep the party together without the help of Obama-era individuals. They could stop bringing up Barack Obama's legacy whenever they had trouble winning over voters. Barack Obama has, in fact, never really stepped away from politics. Although he is no longer an elected official, he is still very much active in determining the party's strategy behind the scenes. Among living Democrats, his support is the most influential. Some of the most influential people in the country are part of his donor network. There has been no diminishment of his impact on influential policy groups, media personalities, and grassroots organizations. Now that Biden isn't involved, that impact is more apparent than before. To the Democratic establishment, Michelle Obama's address at the DNC was more than simply an endorsement of Kamala Harris. It was a reminder that the Obamas are still the glue that holds the party together. It was a staged event with two goals in mind. A, to put the Obamas in a position to succeed where Biden failed, and B, to solidify their status as the party's future leaders. Things are about to get interesting from here on out. Michelle Obama has been dismissive of the prospect of seeking public office for quite some time. Her no interest in politics is something she has said openly. She has categorically denied ever considering a presidential bid. However, Obama did he not say something similar once? Barack Obama toned down any real idea of running for president before the year 2008. As he continued to establish his reputation, he remained a junior senator. He denied considering or intending to run for president during interviews. Then, after only 2 years, he declared his candidacy. Is it truly assumed that Michelle Obama has withdrawn from politics altogether? It seems differently given her attendance at the DNC. Speaking at this event was not mandatory for her. She could have stayed out of the limelight and quietly supported Kamala Harris instead. Yet, it was not the case for her. As the Democratic Party began to move away from Biden, she stepped into the spotlight and gave one of the most prominent addresses of the whole event. The 24-hour election approach is intriguing for this very reason. This is the same blueprint Michelle Obama would follow to set the framework for a presidential candidacy in the future, be it in 2008 or later. To start, she makes it clear that she is not affiliated with the Biden administration's mistakes. She doesn't directly accuse the Democrats, but she does admit that the United States is having problems. In her own words, she presents herself as an unbiased arbiter, a rock of stability, and a symbol of optimism. Secondly, she portrays herself as independent of party politics. Instead of discussing Democratic platform items or policies, her address focused on feelings, solidarity, and optimism. Without officially launching a campaign, politicians do this to set the stage. Thirdly, she relies on supposition rather than hard evidence. She could just let the media, contributors, and political strategists to begin envisioning what her campaign would entail rather than announcing it. Rest certain, they are already picturing it in their minds. There have been rumors circulating for months that prominent Democratic strategists and funders have been clandestinely debating the prospect of Michelle Obama running for president. In 2028, she may be the best choice for the party, according to some. Some have even gone so far as to say that Michelle Obama may be installed as a substitute for Kamala Harris at the last minute in the event that she has trouble winning the general election. For the time being, though, this is just conjecture. Still, the bigger issue is whether or not the American people desire continued implementation of the policies that brought us to this point. This is due to the fact that the Obamas' influence has remained constant, despite their best efforts to distance themselves from the political setbacks of the previous 4 years. The middle class has been crushed by economic challenges, and there has been a widening of divisions. There has also been a soaring of crime in big cities. They have been constructing for more than 10 years. Joe Biden was only the beginning. Enjoyed your viewing. In case you found this entertaining, please subscribe, like, and comment. Continue watching thrilling material by clicking on the next video.